Welcome to the Oh So Spurs podcast. On this episode of A Coach's View, alongside a licensed coach, JJ, we're going to be looking at where Tottenham's midfield woes are coming from and how the coaching staff could potentially fix them, not just in games, but behind the scenes. And yes, we will also try mention Conor Gallagher and where he may fit into this, as the news has just broken as we were set to record. But how are you, JJ?
I'm good, thanks, Jim. I'm keen to get into this one. Love talking about this stuff.
Very good. Well, we've come prepared with slides and a tactics board. Look, I'll pass over to you. We're going to start right with the first half of what wasn't working of Aston Villa, if I understand correctly, when we were playing them, and then why we looked better in the second half and how we can continue on from that in future games.
Yeah, absolutely. So we had one of those typical cliches of a game of two halves to a certain extent against Aston Villa. And there's a few things that we can draw out that talk to themes that we're seeing time and again under Thomas Frank. And I think most people walked away from the game thinking, if we just played the way we played for 20, 30 minutes in the second half, that's the Tottenham Hotspur we want to see. So let's see how we actually get to that. So what we're going to start off with, unfortunately, is the side of it that wasn't working very well. So just very quickly on the tactics board at this moment in time, what I'm going to do is just illustrate one of the things we were trying to do with the football, and it wasn't working very well. So Thomas Frank had used this a lot at Brentford, and I thought he'd use it quite a lot at Tottenham, but he hasn't done it to a greater or lesser extent with us. But we split our centre halves, we pushed the two full backs higher up, and then what he did is he dropped Archie Gray into the middle of the two centre halves, effectively creating a three at the back with a sweeper style, deep lying playmaker. In the first half, so many times we saw Archie Gray standing on the ball, looking ahead. We'd maybe push four players up into the centre. We'd have Polina kind of roaming in the middle. And then you just see Archie Gray trying to play one long ball over the top, which is completely out of ideas. And that is completely ineffective against a well-drilled, well-set-up Villa team. They were able to win first and second balls. And then we had absolutely no answer to how to progress the ball. So there are two ways that Thomas Frank likes to get about teams and do what he wants to do. The progressive side of it is one we're really struggling with, so we're going to come back to that in a second. So if we now go over to the slides and we have a look at where we were in the first half, this is the side of the game that we improved massively on in the second half that then allowed us a platform to play for. So if we look at the first goal, this is the first goal. We'd already had a warning from Villa in terms of how they were going to play, but you could see from that first slide, we had a box midfield around Villa and they were stood on the ball with absolutely acres of time and space in front of the player on the ball. This is a really nice slide now to give the full pitch view of where everyone is. If you look at this particular situation, there should be absolutely no problem whatsoever. But what I'd like people to do is keep their eye on John McGinn there. So he's kind of that, not the furthest bottom right, but just in between the back line and the midfield too. You can see the very clear box, the four players around the two central midfielders. You absolutely cannot afford teams like Villa time and space and the ability to turn and play balls forward, because they are really well drilled and they will do this to great effect. We've sat off, we've allowed a straight ball through into the middle of that box, allowed that player to turn, and then allowed them to do exactly the same thing. So we've effectively, without a single challenge or any pressure whatsoever, we've allowed them to play through the lines. They then free up John McGinn. John McGinn has then laid the ball out wide to Marlon. Pedro Porro goes complete walkabouts. He gets on the wrong side of his player. And then they've just got this is super old-fashioned football, 1980s style, third man run coming through. And what Buendia is going to do is he's going to end up just getting on the overlap. So Marlon's going to drag in Porro. He's going to occupy the centre half and he's just going to reverse the ball into space. Two completely simple straight passes right down the middle of the pitch, and then one ball out and a nice little cut ball in behind. And that was enough to undo the entire Tottenham team. Now, I could spend an hour on what was wrong with that, but the key thing right here is there was no press and no intensity. We'd settled into a mid-block, so we're not trying to win the ball high, and we had just allowed them to play. Every pass was uncontested, until we got to the point where Marlon took the ball on against Porro, and then Porro gets his defending all wrong. So if you're going to allow a team like Villa to do that, you're going to get punished. And by the same token, you are not going to be in a position to press or win the ball and create transitions and create counterattacks. So that's the problem that we had. So if we move on and we go to the deep block, this slide right here, okay, this is another problem that we've identified. Dropping too deep. Our midfield line has dropped all the way in because my belief is the coaching staff have said to the players, percentage-wise, this area on the edge of the box, the so-called zone 14, is, not a high percentage area. So we will give up that area, but we will absolutely lock down the penalty area. Well, what I can tell you here is Villa had a corner. They've worked the ball very, very simply across into the middle of the pitch. And from that position there, he has got all the time and space in the world to take a good touch out in front of him and get a strike away from about 20, 25 yards. The quality that exists at the elite level, they will punish you. We have to stop doing this. So again, we've dropped too deep. We've ceded too much time and too much space to Villa, and therefore we're not able to then press and create turnovers. That was a problem. This was a shot that went straight at Vicario, and he was able to palm it away. But again, we've seen this time and again, and we need to improve on it. So midfield, and particularly the whole team in the first half, we had a mid to low block. It was low energy, no pressing, no getting about the opposition, giving them far too much time to play. And we left the half 2-0. If we move on to the next one, Jim, this one is execution. So we talked about this, right? We've talked about what is wrong with the Tottenham team. We are unable to execute even the simplest of passes. Aston Villa had an attack. We win the ball back. We do quite well. We nod it out and we secure the second ball. From this moment in time, this is a high risk phase right here. If you give the ball away, having just secured it, but having secured it near your own goal, the counter press here, if they win it back, they will have a really good opportunity to get close to the goal and to create a chance to score a goal, which is obviously what happens. We do not execute. This is a really simple pass, and I feel for Matisse Tell, who's been one of our best players, but I really feel for him here because he really should complete. It's not a difficult pass round the corner here into Xavi Simons, who then should secure the football, and we should allow the rest of the team to come out. We don't do that. Matisse Tell gives the ball away, really simple ball, and then they are at us. And you can see Villa have 5 players in a really good attacking position, and this is where they then go on to get a really simple rotation together. If we move the slides on, we'll see in the next slide. They secure the ball, play it through, and rightly so, miss out Morgan Rogers, skipping out our player, stretching the play, playing a further forward pass. This is all very basic stuff. And then a nice little rotation from deep man running Buendia, flicks the ball on, the ball comes inside from Marlon driving in, and then he just lays it off to Morgan Rogers, who finishes it. The only thing I'll say here, and this is for Archie Gray to kind of learn, if he's looking around him, he's got nothing to do in that moment in time. He probably should smell the danger as they've got 4 players out on that side, and he should come in a little bit. But again, I'm not going to go into all the defensive deficiencies because we'll be here too long. But yeah, if you roll it on, Jim, you can see that they go on and they obviously score the second goal. Let's now start talking about the positive. Let's talk about what we did well. And this is where it starts to get a lot better. This is now in the second half. Tottenham are on the attack. And rather than Matisse Tell doing the simple thing, which is what we normally do, he could very easily bounce that ball back into Xavi Simons, or he could knock it back out to the left-hand side here. He doesn't do that. What he does is he secures the ball and he just waits. And then we've got a deep-lying runner, which happens to be Palhinha. And so the change being that we've been more aggressive in terms of sending players forward and sending people forward to try and connect. And so Palhinha breaks that midfield line. His marker falls asleep. He gets in behind him and he plays a nice ball in between those players. You can see there's a little corridor. He plays the ball. Palhinha is able to secure it, move it out to the right-hand side, and then we create a chance. And this was the first look at us doing something very different, us taking the game and trying to be the protagonist here. So we were not just playing it simple. We had ideas, we had movement, we had energy, and we were able to create a chance. This is exactly the Tottenham we want to see. We don't want to see that clueless first half performance with no energy. We want to see this Tottenham Hotspur. So if we move it on one, you can see this is the next opportunity that we had to create a chance. What's the difference between the second half and the first half? This is Tottenham getting the ball into an advanced area. Porro had a shot that got blocked, and then we counter press. So Villa secure the ball with Rodgers, but we get in there, and I think it's really good work from Palhinha, probably, who had been on the edge of the box. He gets in. That's the counter press, completely absent in the first half. We managed to secure this ball, and if we can see just on the left-hand side, Xavi Simons is there. The ball falls to Xavi Simons on the edge of the box. He gets a good shot off, and it's a good save from the goalkeeper. This is exactly what the Tottenham fans were waiting for, and the crowd then get into it. This is the moment where we're all starting to get excited, and we're getting off our seats. If we move on to the next one, we make them pay. And this is exactly it. So we actually had a throw on the right-hand side. Porro, not a particularly good throw on. We end up losing the ball, but it's the counter press. It's that energy. Kolo Muani does not give up on this ball. He actually gets nudged off it in the first instance, but he doesn't give up. And you can see him here. Villa are about to make a break. They're about to move away. We don't let them. We re-secure possession of the ball quickly. So Kolo Muani's onto this. He nudges his opponent off the ball. Finally, a bit of energy and a bit of aggressivity in there. And if we move on to the next slide, we'll see what that leads to. Look at this. We've got a wonderful 4v3 on the wrong side because we secured possession high up the pitch. We know Thomas Frank wants to do this. We know Thomas Frank wants to be aggressive, and he wants to have a counter press that's active higher up the pitch, and we saw it in the Man City game when we were so brilliant at doing it. This is exactly what we've been missing, and we managed to do it. And here we got a 4v3, and we execute. Kolo Muani chooses the correct pass, which is the pass that's going to put a player through first. He doesn't look to his left, which is maybe a 1 and a 2 pass out and then a ball across. He moves that ball quickly and he gives Odobert a chance. Odobert is faced up with the keeper 1v1 and it's a lovely finish. He strikes it well, strikes through it, hits the second post, and it's a really, really good goal. That's what we've been waiting to see. Be proactive, be positive, move the ball quickly. All of the things we want to see from a Tottenham team. Are we going to do this consistently? That's what Tottenham fans are waiting for. If we move it on one, again, exactly the same thing. Look at this little situation here. Midfield secures the ball high up. We draw players in. Xavi Simons, nice and positive, gets himself in this little pocket. We've got a lovely little rollover from Midfield to put it on his left foot, and he's got the confidence to pop it through that gap. And then Xavi Simons is on the ball, and we've got another opportunity to create a chance, a shooting chance on the edge of the box. This is really hard for Villa to defend, because if they do want to defend this, you can see Buendia either has to come all the way over, in which case Archie Gray would be a threat. They then have to send their striker back to mark him. And then all of a sudden you're forcing them to play with 11 men behind or right by the ball. And that's exactly where we want them. Okay, this is the kind of thing. Rotations, being brave with our passing, linking things up, trying to cause the opposition problems, as opposed to the rather clueless way we were looking at it in the first half. If we move it on. This is another final example. I don't want to, kind of do it to death, but this is a kind of mid-block. We're in a mid-block at the minute, but what's the difference between the mid-block here and the mid-block we saw when we allowed Aston Villa to walk through us is how aggressive we are. Gone is the box midfield with everyone standing staring at each other. Palhinha engages, the ball is played into McGinn, which they were trying to do. They were trying to move him around in that area to secure the ball because he's very good at doing it. Palhinha goes and engages him. He actually gets it slightly wrong, but there's enough physical challenge in it to put McGinn off his touch. This ball then falls to Archie Gray, who's there to pick up the pieces. And then what happens next, if we move on to the next slide, Archie Gray plays a forward pass first touch. He doesn't take time. He doesn't look. He doesn't secure it and move it out to the left back or the right back. He punches one through. Straight ball through the lines, and then Xavi Simons does exactly the same thing. A first touch round the corner. All of a sudden, 3 Villa players have been drawn in. They have absolutely no chance of stopping this because of the pace of the play, playing first touch and playing positively forward. This is what we want to see. This is what fans are desperate to see. And all of this is done down the middle. None of this is done by trying to create rotations in the wide area where Thomas Frank really likes to do a lot of his work. This is what Tottenham fans want to see, and it's why it was so exciting. This ball is popped round to Odobert, and then we are right at Villa, and we are running at the back line. I think it ends with Odobert having a shot with his left foot, the save by the keeper.
So I'm curious then. So do you think this is that braver play you spoke about there, and you showed us the importance of bravery, direct passing, and you keep using that word bravery, and we're seeing it there. That's why it's so important. It's that last phase of play, the confidence to play it first time, punch through balls to the middle. So much of Frank's play seems to be out wide though, and so much of that good play is through the middle when we do it. Do you feel he's trying to get to that stage, but doesn't feel he's got the players or for whatever reason, or are the players just at some point just playing their own game a bit and showing that they can do it without being instructed to? Where do you feel on that side of it?
It's such a hard one to say. I've heard a lot of people saying, the players tore up the game plan and played their own game. That might be true. It might not be true. There's no way for me to know the answer to that question. But what is important is the style of play, and the way that Tottenham progress the football is important. It's important to the fans. And so if we've had half a season where Thomas Frank's plan A of, being brilliant at moving it down the wings, getting into the half spaces, and, getting those little crosses in from the fullbacks or the wide players, and getting strikers onto them, and then the transitional play, if that hasn't come about, you're going to need to do something different. And a lot of people will say, well, Tottenham just don't have the players. Our squad isn't good enough. Our players aren't good enough. Well, I absolutely beg to differ. What I saw out there was, as Villa started to bring on more of what you would argue is their first team, and with the amount of injuries that we've got and players missing, we took the players we had available to us and we started to play, with some confidence and some bravery. You can do it. And I think a great example of that we've mentioned here on the channel is Sunderland and the way that they tend to play. Nobody would argue that they have a better squad than a lot of the teams that they've, put to the sword this season, but they play a certain way with a certain bravery, and it can be done. If you have a squad of the talent of Tottenham's, you can do a lot better than we have done. And therefore, that is what I'm praying to see more, and hopefully we'll see a lot more of that on the pitch going forward.
So JJ, does Conor Gallagher is the talk at the moment? Does he level up Spurs in any way, or is he more of a player that eases the strain of injuries at the moment?
Yes, Conor Gallagher is an interesting one. I just wonder whether he's a club signing, given how long Tottenham have courted him and how long we've been kind of looking at him and trying to get this deal over the line. He definitely fits Thomas Frank's way of playing, so I can see for sure he'd be on board with the signing, whether or not he's leading the charge on this one. High energy, lots of work rate. He covers just about every blade of grass on the pitch. He can play in multiple positions in those midfield three. He will be relatively comfortable in the 6 and the 8. He can play the 10. He did a bit of that at Crystal Palace when he had that fantastic loan season with them. So yeah, he's got the flexibility required for a Thomas Frank side, and he's got the energy that's required. How he fits into Tottenham is going to be very, very interesting to see who drops out. But at the minute, with the injury crisis that we've got going on in our midfield, you would say that he may not be the absolute best midfielder out there that Tottenham could go after, but he will certainly ease some of our injury woes. And he is of, kind of a level of quality that he's shown that he can play at Premier League. So he could be a good signing if well deployed.
And he seems like the type of player that is relatively adaptable. There is uncertainty over Thomas Frank, and if it was the case that Spurs changed manager end of the season, he seems like a relatively adaptable squad player that can be used in multiple ways, right?
Absolutely. I think you and I were saying off air that if it was one of our previous incumbents in the managerial role, he might be even more of a fit. But yeah, I can definitely see that Thomas Frank would enjoy having a player like that in his team.
Well, thank you very much, JJ. And if you enjoyed the video, please make sure you subscribe. I'll collaborate this video with JJ's channel, The Full Co, so you can find his on there as well. And up the Spurs.